a new episode of Africa Today. My name is Ahmed. Well, Minister of Foreign Affairs Badr Abdelati affirmed to his Nigerian and also Chadian counterparts Egypt's commitment to protecting African stability and security in separate meetings on the sidelines of the Tokyo International Conference on Africa Development, TICAD. The details in the following report.
Minister of Foreign Affairs Badr Abdelati reaffirmed to his Nigerian and Chadian counterpart Egypt's commitment to protecting African stability and security in separate meetings on the sidelines of the Tokyo International Conference on African Development. In their meeting, Abdelati and Nigerian PM Yusuf Maitama Togar exchanged views on enhancing regional security and addressing the ongoing crisis in Sudan, which has been embroiled in a civil war since April 2023. Both sides expressed their desire to deepen cooperation across key sectors and reinforce Africa's peace and security infrastructure, with Egypt affirming its commitment to the continent's stability and prosperity. The meeting also covered key regional and international issues, including security challenges in the Sahel region and West Africa. Furthermore, Abdelati and Togar discussed means to enhance bilateral cooperation, particularly in economic, commercial and investment sectors, in addition to promoting private sector involvement, according to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. In a separate meeting with his Chadian counterpart, Abdelati emphasized Egypt's commitment to strengthening ties with Chad. He also stressed that Chad's security is crucial to regional stability. Their meeting also addressed the Sudan crisis, focusing on its direct impact on both nations due to their proximity and the significant humanitarian burden of hosting Sudanese refugees.
Well, to shed more light on this, we have the pleasure to have with us over the phone our dear guest, Dr. Ahmed Mostafa, the international relations expert. Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon. How are you?
How are you, sir? Well, Dr. Mostafa, as the Foreign Minister of Foreign Affairs Badr Abdelati participated in the TICAD summit. On the sidelines, he held several meetings during which he stressed Egypt's commitment to the stability and security of the African countries. How did you read this?
Yeah, this is the crucial rule of Egypt. It is a permanent rule of Egypt because Egypt is considered like the mother of Africa. Of course, there was some time we were away from Africa, especially from the 90s, the last century, until 2011 or 2013, until 13th of June. And now we're trying just to restore our legacy in Africa as before, because you know that Egypt had a lot, especially in the liberation movements and things like that. And most of the old leaders in Africa and the scholars, they know how much Egypt has supported a lot the transformation concerning democracies, concerning, the liberation from the colonialism and things like that. Before Egypt always being at the mother of Africa and the gate of Africa, and Africa is getting a lot from Egypt in this regard, and we participated in several issues like development of education and media and investment and infrastructure, and also in the security of Africa. Therefore, this is exactly the correct rule in Africa, and we expect Egypt to do more and more in Africa, yes, because Africa is a big treasure, and we should get the benefit at the maximum from this treasure as well.
Yes, Dr. Mostafa, you've mentioned a very important word, which is development, the role of Egypt in the development of Africa. We'd like to shed more light on this point.
Yeah, you know that even since the 60s of the last century, several infrastructure and contracting companies already participated in the development in the African countries. Not only that, we had a Nasri company for trade and export and imports. It had like 35 branches throughout the whole continent. And all of them also, we had the educational and the scientific commissions and missions are coming to Cairo and to Egypt just to upgrade the level of education, because Egypt at such time it was the main country that already having research centers, big universities of the top universities and things like that. And we try to sustain such activities. We know that some of the sub-Saharan countries already achieved a greater, percentage and proportion of development, like Rwanda, like Kenya, like Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, the other also in South Africa, in Botswana, in Namibia, in whatsoever countries. But Egypt can do a lot because we still have the proper scientific research, we still have the digitization, we still have the biggest, computing and technology companies, the biggest banking system, and all of that already needed in Africa. And Africa is very needy, because if I can tell you that according to the statistics of International Telecommunication Federation, they mentioned that there is a need for 500 million of the African people to have this digital ID. And I think here, Egypt, with maybe the international rivals or partners, may having a greater role in this regard to upgrade the banking system, to upgrade the digitization, to upgrade a lot of projects in respect of energy, renewable energy, and achieving also the sustainable development goals. And you know that Africa was the first country to adopt the COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh 2 years ago. Therefore, Egypt has a lot to give to Africa as well.
Yes.
Therefore, as you said, Egypt is the leader of development in Africa in this regard.
Yes. Dr. Mostafa, with the participation of 40 countries around the world and from Africa in Tokyo in this summit, how did you see or follow the recommendations and the outcome of this conference?
I think the outcome, sometimes you know that the final declaration or the conclusions of any conference or gathering or forums or whatsoever of such type of events is, considered great. But to implement such issues, I think the main country or the hosting country, sometimes it has some sort of laziness, because if you remember 3 years before, in the latest, or 2 years before the latest TICAD, summit in Tunisia, already Japan promised just to give Africa about $30 billion for developments, for the bees, for a lot of things, for upgrading different kind of developmental, topics and issues. But in fact, I don't think that such amount was received by the African Union or the African countries in terms of projects and things like that. Maybe because of corona pandemic, maybe of course the international conflict, the supply chain problems or whatsoever. But if they promise, also Africa should be ready for such kind of donations by submitting a proper studies, like feasibility studies, and which fields are in need for such funds. The mistake is common here. From the funder itself, maybe this laziness coming because he doesn't find that maybe the partner in Africa not ready just to receive, or in which way this amounts or such funds will be, spent in the right way, will be spent in the right way. And also, it is the reliability and the responsibility of also the funder himself in this regard. Therefore, what I need from the African leaders and from the participants, just to know exactly which fields they need such amounts, preparing the proper feasibility studies for this, and trying to send them properly to Japanese administration. If the Japanese administration found it feasible, of course they will find no way to give such kinds of funds and to develop the African countries. The good thing that now Africa is like the big treasure, as I told you before, because of the cheapest manpower, and Africa is full of treasures in respect of the natural resources, and a lot of achievements could be done in Africa, despite the indebtedness, despite everything. And the good thing that there are international rivals in the African arena, like Japan, like China, of course, like ASEAN, like Pakistan, like India, like Iran, like Turkey, like Russia, of course, and EU, as well as the United States and Canada. Therefore, all of those competing to having like a footprint in Africa. Therefore, we should take such opportunity. It's good enough.
Yes, Dr. Mostafa, since the establishment of the United Nations since 1945, Africa have witnessed several transformation and changes. What was the kind of support the UN has provided to Africa, and also UN representatives were present in this conference?
This is correlated to what I said before. I think the representatives of Africa should not include only governmental or official representatives. Sometimes, because if you send too much representatives from, the government and from officials, most of the officials are not aware of the proper fields to attract investors, especially the foreign investors from countries like Japan, which is a top level and cutting edge technology and things like that. They need the people who are working in the civil society. They need the private sector. They need the people specialists in, the digital transformation, startups, pools of small and medium businesses and things like that. The people who are working in sustainable development, those who really having the right figures and the right information and can lead the Japanese decision makers to the right points in Africa. It was a similar story with me when I was a guest via this Sino-Arab Summit in last May in Beijing, because I already shed the light on several topics which is not tackled by the officials during the meetings with the Chinese officials in this regard. And that attracted a lot of the people. This is why they published what I said in my recommendations and my analysis for the events. Yes. This is exactly the way we're having such trade-off in this way with the big countries like Japan and the others.
Yes, Dr. Mostafa, concerning the trade, some analysts have said that the future of trade in the world nowadays is going to be in Africa. How do you read this, and also the cooperation and the trade agreements being signed between African countries, and among them Egypt with other African countries, the free trade agreement? How do you see this in boosting the African economy?
Exactly, because as I told you, despite the indebtedness, because Africa is indebted with $1 trillion US. This is a big amount, but also it could be, fixed very soon if we have such kind of free trade zone throughout the whole Africa, because it will have a lot of, some sort of economic advantages in this regard. If we, for example, just stop some, customs or having like proper and more competitive advantages for African, trade or the Pan-African trade and things like that. If we having like a unity of the banking system and customs system and fiscal and monetary system, while we don't have like a unified monetary, this is very important, and that will facilitate all such kind of technology and things like that will help a lot. Just operations or these legal frameworks or whatsoever will help a lot to enable Africa and enable the foreign investors just to come to Africa, and having a lot of things that will be beneficial for the coming generations. Also, the matter of scientific research in different kind of sciences, whether the social sciences or the humanities or the natural sciences, it is very crucial, because without such kind of scientific research and having like a stronger academia in Africa and think tanks and things like that, I think we meet the opportunities. And also having collaboration and cooperation, scientific research with international partners like Japan, like China, like so and so and so and so. I think the Chinese were very lucky because they already give about 70,000 scholarships for the Africans since 2000. This is why those scholars, or African scholars, when they back to Africa, they became like ambassadors for the China. This is why China is #1 in Africa so far, with investments of more than 300 billion US dollars so far, and will be increased to reach $1 trillion by 2030, according to the statements of the Chinese ambassador here to Egypt. This is the way how to stimulate the relation, the African-African or the Pan-African relations, as well as the African and the foreign, partners in this regard.
Yes, I thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your valuable information, Dr. Ahmed Mostafa, the international relations expert. Thank you very much for joining us over the phone. Ladies and gentlemen, a short break, and I'm going to be back with you.
نحن لدينا مصير مشترك. مصر تسلمت الرئاسة الدورية للاتحاد الإفريقي لعام 2019 وتتطلع كعادتها دوما للتعبير عن شواغل الشعوب الإفريقية الشقيقة الرامية لتحقيق الاستقرار والتقدم ودفع عجلة التنمية قدما. إذا كنتم ترغبون في تغيير وجه القارة الأفريقية، فالاتحاد الافريقي كقيادة تستطيع ان تعمل وتدرس بشكل مركزي لمشروع عملاق لبناء بنية اساسية على مستوى القارة. انا اتصور ان الامن والاستقرار استثمار. اذا لم تستقر هذه القارة والامن فيها بمعدلاته عالية، هذا الامر سينعكس بالسلب علينا كلنا.
Welcome back. Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati said that what's going on from suffering of the Palestinian people in Gaza and the Sudanese in Sudan should be taken seriously, and that the international community should react strongly to stop all the sufferings of the people. The details in the following report.
Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati underscored that the enduring conflicts in Sudan and Gaza serve as stark examples of the international community's incapacity or unwillingness to intervene. Abdulati delivered this message during a speech at the Tokyo International Conference on African Development ministerial meeting held in the Japanese capital. The primary focus of the TCAD ministerial meeting 2024 is to delineate medium and long-term development priorities in the upcoming years for the partnership between Africa and Japan. The top diplomat stressed the importance of exploring strategies to tackle the current threats to peace and security in Africa and globally, citing the inadequacy of the existing tools in addressing the interact challenges faced by the international community. He emphasized the critical need for sustained reforms in the structure of the international peace and security to enhance representation, align better with present realities, and have a more significant impact on human lives. Abdulati reaffirmed Egypt's commitment to supporting Africa's post-conflict reconstruction and development agenda, particularly in light of Egypt's chairmanship of the Steering Committee of the Heads of State and Government of the African Union Developing Agency, NEPAD. He expressed Egypt's eagerness to strengthen the interlinked relationship between peace and development as the optimal approach for conflict prevention, peace building, and sustainability.
Well, the last elephant in South Africa's National Zoo has been released back into the wild after 40 years of captivity. The details in the following report.
The last elephant in South Africa's National Zoo has been released back into the wild after 40 years of captivity. The elephant, named Charlie, was captured in 1984 from Zimbabwe's National Park when he was 2 years old. He was taken to Boswell Wilkie Circus in South Africa and trained to perform tricks. In the early 2000s, he was transferred to the country's National Zoo. In recent years, animal welfare groups have pushed for the elephant to be freed due to concern for his health. EMS Foundation, which advocates for the rights of wildlife, announced that a nail-biting 4-hour trip to freedom the elephant had arrived at his new home at the private reserve in Limpopo province. It said the historic event followed years of negotiation with the South African government after EMS Foundation and its partners provided scientific evidence to show that elephants suffer in zoos. At the zoo, Charlie the elephant is said to have witnessed the death of 4 other elephants, including his own calf, which was less than a month old. The elephant's new home is a 10,000-hectare reserve with a thriving population of elephants known to successfully reintegrate animals back into the wild. While there, Charlie will be closely monitored by veterinary and behavioral experts. On concerns about how Charlie would cope with the new environment, they said that already positive signs of setting in, and Charlie was very excited to hear other elephants from far away with whom he had started to communicate. South Africa has more than 25,000 wild elephants, according to the South African Parks Authority. African elephants face threats from poachers, with thousands of them illegally killed each year for their tusks. They also face habitat loss due to the expanding human settlements.
Well, with this we come to the end of this episode of Africa Today. My name is Ahmed. Thank you for watching.